Well, good morning. The lesson today I've entitled Seeing the Things to Come. And we'll be reading from Hebrews chapter 11, verses 17 to 22. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, "In Isaac your seed shall be called," concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. In our last lesson, we learned that enduring by living by faith, walking by faith and not by sight, means that even though we do not see the promises fulfilled right now, right here on this earth, by faith we see them afar off. By faith we are assured that God will eventually fulfill them, and by faith we joyfully embrace them. By faith we also patiently wait for them, knowing that obtaining them includes long-suffering and perseverance. And when times get hard, we remind ourselves and each other that this is not our home, that we are merely passing through here, that our real home is in the New Jerusalem on the new earth, where all of God's promises will be fulfilled. If we do all of that, then God will be pleased with us, and he will not be ashamed to be called our God. The writer of the epistle returns to Abraham as he continues down his list of Old Testament saints who lived by faith. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, "In Isaac your seed shall be called," concluding that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from which he also received him in a figurative sense. This is verses 17 and 19. The story to which the writer refers is found in Genesis 22, 1 through 19, so let's turn there. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." So Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering, and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you." So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." Then he said, "Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" And Abraham said, "My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." So the 2 of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him. And Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." So he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Then Abraham lifted his eyes and looked, and there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place, "The Lord will provide." As it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time out of heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son, blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore, and your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. In your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. Years before Isaac was born, God gave Abraham several promises. Those promises included having so many descendants that he could not count them. For they would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. Those descendants would come through Isaac. They would come through Isaac, which is why God said, In Isaac your seed shall be called. But now, in this story, God told Abraham to kill Isaac by offering up as a burnt offering, as a burnt sacrifice. When God told him to do this, Abraham must have had a conflict churning inside of him, though the scriptures do not directly say so. He must have thought, how can God fulfill his promise to me about having numerous descendants through Isaac if he wants me to kill Isaac? At first, it must have seemed impossible for God to give him numerous descendants if Isaac was dead. But his faith in God's ability to fulfill his promises finally won out. By faith, he concluded that God must have been planning on raising Isaac from the dead. Of course, God resolved this dilemma by stopping Abraham from killing Isaac. He just wanted to see if Abraham was willing to give to God what was his most precious possession, which was Isaac, his only begotten son. The Greek word for only begotten is monogenes, and it is used of only sons or daughters. It's used of only sons or daughters. We know from the scriptures that God had other sons through Hagar, Genesis 16, and Keturah and other concubines, Genesis 25, 1 through 6. But Isaac is called his only begotten because he was the only son of both Abraham and Sarah. Because of this almost sacrifice, Isaac became a type of Christ. He became a type of Christ. Abraham was willing to sacrifice his most precious possession, his only begotten son. So too, God sacrificed his most precious possession, his only begotten son, Jesus Christ. Isaac apparently did not resist Abraham, but submitted to his father and willingly let him bind him and place him on the altar. So too, Christ submitted to his father and willingly went to the cross. The difference, however, is that Isaac was not actually sacrificed, whereas Christ was. Even so, in a figurative sense, Isaac was raised from the dead, even as Christ was literally raised from the dead. This picture of Isaac as a type of Christ would be even better if the site where he was almost sacrificed is also the site where Jesus was crucified. Abraham was told to sacrifice Isaac on a mountain in the land of Moriah. Genesis does not name this mountain, nor does it tell us where this land was. It only tells us that it took Abraham 3 days to walk from Beersheba to the mountain. However, 2 Chronicles 3:1 says, Now Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David, at the place that David had prepared on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Because of this verse, the tradition developed that this Mount Moriah, where the temple was built, was also the mountain on which Abraham almost sacrificed his son. The first person to state this tradition in writing was Josephus, who was a Jewish historian living in the 1st century AD. The scriptures do not explicitly say that Mount Moriah was also the mountain in the land of Moriah. Moriah in the Hebrew means chosen by Yahweh. It means chosen by Yahweh. God chose which mountain Abraham should sacrifice his son on, and God also chose which mountain Solomon should build the temple on. If they are the same mountain, then Jesus was sacrificed near the site where Abraham almost sacrificed his son. Isaac was also a type of us. He's a type of us. in that he did not have to die because God provided a ram to take his place. So too, we do not have to die for our sins because God has provided Jesus Christ to take our place. God told Abraham to sacrifice his son, which by sight made it seem impossible for God to fulfill his promises. But Abraham obeyed him anyway because by faith he knew that God would still find a way to fulfill his promises. That is the kind of faith we need to have. The faith that leads us to obey God because by faith we know that he will fulfill his promises, even though by sight it looks like he cannot. Isaac goes on to marry Rebekah, who gives birth to twin boys, Esau and Jacob. The writer of the epistle says, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Verse 20. This is a reference to Genesis 27, 36 to 39. So let's turn there. That's Genesis 27, verses 26 to 39. Now, in context, what has happened is Isaac has gotten old, so old that he's blind. And he's thinking that he's going to die any day. It turns out he died years later, but he's thinking that he's going to die any day. So he wants to bless Esau before he dies. So he gets Esau, and he tells him, go out, hunt, get some game, and prepare food for me, the food that I like. And when you do, I'll bless you. Well, Rebekah overhears that. And so while Esau's out hunting, she gets Jacob and says, we're going to dress you up like Esau. I'll prepare some food that he likes. And you go in and pretend to be Esau and get the blessing. And so he does. That's what happens. So starting at verse 26, then his father Isaac said to him, come near now and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him and said, surely the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. Therefore may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food, and brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? So he said, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, who? Where is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, bless me also, O my father. But he said, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. And Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob, which means supplanter? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he has taken away my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass, when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck. Isaac could not see by sight because he was blind, but by faith Isaac was able to see the things to come. He was able to see the things to come and bless his sons accordingly. The writer then says, by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning on the top of his staff. Verse 21. That story is told in Genesis 48, 13 to 20. So let's turn to that one also. Now, again, in context, Jacob is sick, and he's probably on his deathbed. They're thinking that he could die any day, and he's blind. So just like Isaac, he's sick, he's maybe dying, and he's blind. So Joseph decides that this is the time to bring his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father and have him bless them. And starts in verse 13. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. Then Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, guiding his hands knowingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has fed me all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads. Let my name be named upon them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Now when Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He shall also become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations. So he blessed them that day, saying, By you Israel will bless, saying, May God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And thus he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Like Isaac, Jacob could not see because he was blind, but by faith he was able to see the things to come, and blessed Joseph's sons accordingly. By faith, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. Verse 22. This occurred in Genesis 50. So let's turn there. Genesis 50, verses 24 to 26. And Joseph said to his brethren, I am dying, but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph took an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. By faith, Joseph knew that the day was coming in which God would visit the nation of Israel and lead them back to the promised land. He wanted them to take his bones with them and bury him there. Exodus 13:19 tells us that the Israelites did take his bones with them when they left Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you. Joshua 24:32 tells us that once the Israelites cleared the land of most of their enemies and divided the land among the tribes, they buried Joseph's bones in Shechem in the land given to the tribe of Ephraim. By faith, Joseph could see all of this happening before it actually happened. Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, therefore, could, by faith, see things that were yet to come. We can do the same by faith. God has already revealed in his word some of the things that are yet to come. These things affect the world in general, and we Christians as a whole. God may also reveal to you the things to come that will affect you, or your family, or your nation. When he does, believe what he says, and then, by faith, act accordingly. That's it for today. Do we need to take a break before questions and answers? Okay, any questions, comments?
chosen by Yahweh, it could possibly not, because I also had been taught the Moriah, Isaac, Christ, same mountain.
Yeah.
Maybe not same location on the mountain, but same mountain. But it could mean that it's just the place that God has chosen. And because God chose where the temple would be built, that's also the place where God chose. So it could be, you're saying that's the connection possibly
Yeah.
to the name, which just means this is the
Right.
place he chose, not necessarily the same place.
Right.
Okay, I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. I didn't
Yeah. Not necessarily the same place. Now, I know that's a common teaching that it is exactly the same place. I heard that too and believed it for a while. But when I was studying this, it was saying that, again, Genesis doesn't pinpoint exactly where that is. And one commentator pointed out that if you try to approach the Mount Moriah in Jerusalem from either the west or the south, because if he's coming from Beersheba, he would be coming from southwest of Jerusalem. He says, now maybe things have changed because, Jerusalem's all built up and all this stuff. But his point was, Genesis says that Abraham saw the mountain afar off. So while he still had some distance to go, he could still see it. The thing is the Mount Moriah in Jerusalem is surrounded by other hills. So if you're on the plain walking toward Jerusalem, you can't see it from there. And so his thing is that it must have been a different mountain. But again, nobody has the definitive answer one way or the other. And God didn't see fit to make it a definitive answer one way or the other. It's nice to think that, but again, the scriptures don't actually make that connection. So.
But it would make sense that the idea is the typology more so than the location itself.
Right. In the sense that both places were chosen by God.
Yeah.
I want you to sacrifice here. He told Abraham a specific place. Do it here.
Yeah.
And of course, Christ was, crucified at a place that God chose too.
Yeah.
So.
And Isaac being a type of Christ, and us being a type of Isaac also.
Yeah.
And so the typology more so than the location.
Right.
Yeah, okay. That's cool.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I had heard that Moriah meant truth.
Yeah, when I looked it up in the lexicon, they all came to chosen or appointed by Yahweh. Okay, well, if there's no more comments or questions, I guess we're done for the day.